This session will be chaired by Professor Theresia Kimbeng Inko Akenji, AAU Vice President, Central Africa Region, Vice Chancellor of Bamenda University. This is on a topic driving excellence, key achievements, and lessons from the ACE journey, African Center of Excellence journey. Put your hands together for Professor Akenji.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants at this 16th Quadrennial Conference. I'm most honored to be chair of this ACE Impact session, and I welcome you on behalf of the speakers and the panelists. Permit me to just give you an overview about the ACE project. ACE-1 project was launched in the year 2014, and 2 years after that, the ACE-2 project was launched, and 3 years after that, in 2019, the ACE Impact 1 and 2 project was launched. So today we're going to be listening to an assessment of how these projects have fared in the last 10 years. And these 3 operations have supported selected African centers of excellence with specializations in regional development priority areas to deliver high-quality postgraduate training, skills upgrading for professionals, applied research, entrepreneurship, and innovation in sectors such as agriculture, water, health, energy, environment, engineering, digital development, urban transport, mining, and education. The other day, the representative from World Bank talked briefly about the ACE project, which is a flagship program of World Bank. And for the last 10 years, the World Bank has committed about $657 million to support governments of the 20 countries in Africa that have been involved. And there are over 80 projects, over 80 centers of excellence in Africa, and of course supported by the French Development Agency to the tune of about $72 million. So today we are going to be listening to some vice chancellors of the universities that have been involved in the ACE project, and also the leader of one of the centers. So permits me now to call up to the stage one of the presenters, Mrs. A.G.E.N.D.A, AAU Monitoring and Evaluation Manager. Please, can we clap for her? She's coming up. And then we have as our panel discussants. Yes, please. Then our panel discussants, we have Professor Folashade Ogunsola, Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, Nigeria. We have Professor Alhaji Bamba Diwa, Director General, 221E Burkina Faso. And then we have Professor Richard Boama, who is the center leader for RWESCK Ghana. Okay, so I have the pleasure to call on Mrs. A.G.E.N.D.A, who is going to be talking to us about driving excellence, key achievements, and lessons from the ACE journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished participants. I see we are behind time, so we'll just run you through the journey over the 10-year period. So quickly, we'll take you through, give you some points on some background to the Africa Centers of Excellence program, and then we're going to take a quick look at what we have achieved over the 10-year period, essentially what we've achieved with respect to expanded access, enhanced quality of postgraduate education, and advanced sector relevant and applied research. Whatever we've achieved with regards to university-industry linkages, and then graduate employability. We take a quick look at how we performed financially, because that is a key performance indicator under the project. Then we take a quick look at challenges and lessons learned, some recommendations, and then the next steps. That's quite a mouthful, but we'll be very quick. So already the chair for the session had made reference to some aspects of the project. We know that the World Bank, with funding from the World Bank, the African countries concerned under the project wanted to build regional hubs that would provide skills and produce graduates that can contribute towards the development of the countries. As you see on the screen, we have centers in West and Central Africa, the blue dots. We also have some centers in the southern part of Africa, the purple dots, and then we do also have centers in the eastern part of Africa, represented by the green dots. One important thing to note is that under the ACE project, the focus was on a number of priority areas: the STEM, agriculture, health, energy, education, and mining. Another thing to note is that it's a disbursement-linked project, results-based financed project, which means that every amount of money that is disbursed to the project is based on the results that have been achieved and verified. So these are the sectors where we have centers. You find that majority of the centers are in the health, agriculture, ICT, digital, and energy sectors. I think we already heard a bit about this. We've had 3 iterations of the project since it started in 2014, so I would not want to spend too much time there, but we've had ACE-1 in West and Central Africa, followed by ACE-2, Southern and Eastern Africa, then ACE Impact, which was also focusing on Western and Central Africa, and then Djibouti was added on for strategic reasons. So we dive straight in to look at what we've achieved with respect to expanded access to postgraduate education. Essentially, we've been able to expand access. We've had significant increases in the enrollments under various programs, PhD, master's level, and then professional short course programs. The figures are as noted on the screen. You would realize from the very last column that targets that were set for the project have been far exceeded in all of the instances. Important to note that total regional enrollment, that is enrollment of students from outside the ACE countries, is very significant. Also to note that for the enrollments, when you look at the various sectors that the project focuses on, you find agriculture having very high enrollments. We find that a lot of that is accounted for by strong participation in professional short courses. There's been very high female enrollment also in the health sector. Also high regional representation for the water and sanitation sector. Then when we look at the degree level trends, we find that agriculture, health are leading in PhD and master's enrollments, and professional short courses are dominating for the total enrollment in most sectors. Another achievement is the enhancement of quality of postgraduate education. Under the project, every center had to ensure that at least a number of their programs are accredited internationally. So we have quite a number of projects or programs that have accreditation from reputable accreditation agencies. We have 20 regional accreditations or programs that have been accredited by regional bodies. We have over 620 with national accreditation, and we have over 100 programs accredited at the international level. On the screen, the pie chart gives some information on the breakdown of the accreditation of the accredited programs per sector. I wouldn't want to go into that, but the information on the other side of the screen is about institutions that were able to get international accreditation, and they are listed there. They include the University of Cape Coast, Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana, Université Gamal Abdel Nasser de Conakry in Guinea, Université Gaston Berger de Saint-Louis, Senegal, and then École Nationale Supérieure de Statistique et d'Économie Appliquée d'Abidjan of Côte d'Ivoire. All this contributing towards the quality of the postgraduate education. One very important achievement also is to do with the infrastructure for postgraduate education. All the centers under the project were able to either refurbish existing buildings or build new structures. So we have over 51 new buildings that have been constructed and commissioned. There are 9 more to be completed. All buildings are equipped with smart classrooms, interactive whiteboards, and digital tools. And there's renovation, refurbishment, as I referred to earlier. Sorry. With respect to sector relevant and applied research, there's a lot of achievement over there. We have over 10,351 research publications, a proportion of them, 33%, having been co-authored at the regional level, and then the remainder being authored by at the national level. We have some information on the screen also regarding the research that has been done. Significantly, most of the publications are open access, so that ensures that they are accessible by the public. We've also built research capacity. The centers have been incentivized to engage in collaborative research amongst themselves and with other partners. So again, we look at the breakdown of what has been achieved regarding research per sector. And we note that a significant share of the publication is from health, agriculture, STEM, and ICT digital ACEs. We have publications in very prestigious journals. They are listed. And then we have a lot of research collaboration going on among the centers. With regards to sector-relevant and applied research, we also want to take note of what we've achieved with regards to technology transfer. So there are a number of patents that have come out of this project. There are some potential patents, there are some that are in the process and yet to be awarded. There's technology transfer offices that have been set up in almost all of the centers, at least under the third iteration of the project under ACE Impact. All the centers had to set up TTOs, and all the TTOs have developed their IP policies and guidelines for the operations. We note also some achievements in this regard. We have a mass rodent trap technology developed by one of the centers in East Africa that is serving a number of industries. So I had mentioned earlier, we're doing a lot with regards to university-industry linkages. We've promoted this through a number of ways: internships and exchanges, revenue generation, and then professional short courses. So under the project, every student has to undergo internships, practical internships, sector-relevant internships, external revenue. Every center is required to generate revenue externally, and there's an incentive because the amount you generate will determine a proportion of the funds that are disbursed to the center. We've promoted networks. We have inter-ACE networks, and then each of the ACEs also have their separate networks with other partners. We have research publications that have been produced through the networks. We have some scholarships that have been awarded through the networks, and we have a number of startups also coming out from this collaboration. I already made mention of our professional short courses, under which we have trained a lot of professionals, and the achievements are as noted on the screen. Essentially, we want to give good quality education. We want to produce good graduates, but we are also interested, like was raised in the previous discussion, also interested in ensuring that they get employed. So we've had some assessment of how the products of the centers are faring with regards to employability. We are happy to report that 83% of master's graduates are able to secure employment within the first 6 months of graduation, and 87% of doctorate students are able to secure employment within the first 6 months of graduation. We also note that the salaries that these graduates are earning are notable. So there's been a lot of contribution to growth of different sectors. I'll simply note widespread sector engagement, strong strategic partnerships, leadership through industrial integration, applied research excellence, commercialization pathways, and high industry recognition. And the project, as already mentioned, disbursement is based on the results. So essentially, how much is disbursed to each center is an indication of the achievement of the center. And we note here, the graph simply shows the green bar showing the total allocation of funds to each of the countries, and then the blue bar showing how much of that allocation they were able to earn via the results that they achieved and were verified. And so you realize that in most of the cases, the blue bars are just as tall as the green bars. We note that over 95% of the total funds allocated under the 3 projects, under the 3 phases of the project has been disbursed, which shows that a lot has been achieved. So on good practices, we note that there have been proactive policy frameworks, strategic benchmarking for accreditation readiness. But there have been challenges. The journey has not been without challenges, and most of the challenges have been or are to do with barriers to regional student mobility and academic exchange. For the funds for the project are essentially a loan to the countries involved in the project. And some countries did not understand why they should commit their borrowed funds to regional capacity building. So that was a challenge. There were language-related barriers. There were research delays, tuition fee disparities with international students or regional students having to pay higher fees, and that being a deterrent. Challenges in international accreditation, the time it takes to go through the process too long, challenges also with respect to industry collaboration and the effective use of research insights, ensuring that whatever is produced from the research is factored in, informs decision-making, and informs the way forward. These have been some of the challenges. I would want to skip a few other challenges so we get them soon. Regional integration, a bit of a problem because of the mobility, student mobility challenges. The recommendations to address the challenges that we've highlighted, so addressing regional immigration so that there's mobility, we facilitate mobility of the students, establishing equitable regional tuition, and then enhancing language accessibility. Sorry. Other recommendations regarding research, innovation, and student-related issues. I'm sorry if I've taken you on a rough ride. I've had to hurry. But thank you very much for your attention. The next issue is what next? And I think the panel will be discussing some issues related to that, and we'll be having a representative of the World Bank to speak to what next after this stellar performance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adeline, for respecting the time. I hope I can also moderate the discussions and respect the time because we're really behind time. So I'll just go straight ahead, and from listening to you, you've given us truly a comprehensive presentation of the achievements and challenges encountered in the running of the ACE projects. And I'm sure this information is essential for any next phase. So thank you so much. I'm going to ask our discussants, engage in some discussions as we've heard from the presentation. The successes, which of course is a testament to the potential of regional collaboration in advancing higher education and research excellence. However, sustaining and scaling these achievements is critical to ensuring their long-term impact. So I would like to ask Professor Folashade Ogunsula, VC of the University of Lagos. As the Vice Chancellor, how do you envision the role of governments in building upon the progress made by these centers?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank, or should I say, appreciate again the World Bank and the whole ACE programs. The role of government is actually extremely strategic if we're to scale. We had one center, the A.G.E.N.D.A, that's the one on herbal medicine. And using that as a sort of, should I say, to stand in the gap for the others, one of the things it did for us was a lot of mobility across the region. We got more students coming in from outside Nigeria. We had a lot more industry engagement. We had to deal with policy. So there's quite a lot for government to do to streamline processes as well as create an enabling environment to help industry work with universities. So I put a number of things down. First of all, it's how do we take these centers that have been so well funded to the next level. Those will require from government certain, and it also include what AU will have to do, because a lot of advocacy will be needed here. We need the ACE programs to be part of our national education programs. Let me say, for example, in our university, we already started to look at how they're going to transition within the university structures into institutes or research centers. I think for us, institutes are better. But in doing that, we cannot afford the funding to fall very rapidly. And one of the things we are looking at is with the universities, the vice chancellors, the AU, the World Bank, we might need to do some advocacy for government funding. In Nigeria, we have the TED Fund. The idea is, could the TED Fund that funds research have some specialized funding for these centers? It might just be a bulk sum every year, just to ensure that they continue to work. They will have to apply for grants, but at least that would help. So those sort of policies, then policies that would create tax incentives for private sector to work with them. Private sector is never about altruism. It's what's their gain beyond the fact that on a long-term basis, some research may come out that's useful, but many would not. So to encourage private sector to invest more in these centers and create tax incentives, give some recognitions, national recognitions, I think those would help. The universities can aid them in the sense that we might then help by providing some funding in kind, staff, the electricity budgets, even if we cannot necessarily give money. Then the policies concerning research management offices, career paths for researchers, and so on, need to be strengthened. Most universities do it on their own, and I think at this stage it's that it should be part of the policy of the government that universities must have the ITMO offices, the research management offices to have career paths. We have, but this was done by, about 10, 15 years ago. But that's not the norm in every university. And I think it needs to become something that some of our regulatory bodies need to look at. The second one is also policies that reduce the tax outlays of universities. Some of these can be, for example, in some places, the universities have to pay a certain tax to government. Those could be taken and then poured back into research. It may not just be ACE, but for such research institutions of which the ACE groups might benefit. We also should, I'm looking at government rules now, policies to improve human capacity training. As I said before, the research management officers, the innovation officers, procurement, grant managers, safeguarding officers, these are all new careers in some places, and these have to become part of national policy to ensure that they are paid salaries and it's not just a project-based thing. Now, as I said, government can't do it alone, so incentivizing the public-private partnerships would help. The other one is, how do we work to help to regionalize? Those cannot just be done by individual universities talking to each other. We need more government policies to streamline the interactions across the region, that's incentivize these collaborations. And I think from the university point of view, where we can also help, in terms of these, it's to harmonize our qualifications, to ensure that students and staff can move. Right now, yes, we have ECOWAS, but there's still a lot of barriers to mobility, and I think governments need to come together. This might require the advocacy of vice chancellors, of the AU, the AAU, even World Bank that's put this down. And I think this is where we should have all of us that are working together in this space to push for this to happen. I think a bit of it is already happening, but we mustn't allow it to go back and to have incentives for this to occur. One of the things that I also believe is these regional collaborations should not just be around the student mobility, but in terms of things like, which I loved today, the SADC, the library resources, because access to information is a problem. I'm not sure I have all the easy access to resources in Ghana, for example. Those are things that I'm really looking forward to how we can get all these done. Certainly, the standardization of accreditation from the regional point of view, as well as Africa-wide, would be great. If we start regionally, that would be superb. And I think these are things that governments can talk about. I think the other thing I would say is that the ACEs have come up, and many of them are doing really great research. They should be involved in government policies. We should promote their recognition. And it will not just be the ACEs. And I think the ACEs themselves, we should encourage them to work with the National Academies of Science and Medicine so that their input will be done. And I think this is where the universities also come in. How do we strengthen those relationships? How do we promote them? And I think those are things we can do as vice chancellors, that what we're doing, the ACE programs we have, can be showcased even to governments. They already know, but if we don't keep pushing this agenda, they're going to forget that the ACEs, a lot has been poured into them. And I think those are some of the things. I'm sure there are other things I might remember, but I certainly believe one other way is those of us that have ACE programs should actually form strategic partnerships, different countries. That would at least start the process. It may not solve it, but then we start to feel that there's a relationship that mustn't go. Right now, the World Bank is holding us all together. When this is over, how do we continue to work together? Because I feel there's a lot of networking that has occurred. And I sat there thinking, I'm going to have to start talking to the Vice Chancellor of this place and that place so that the relationships we've had can then continue. And if the governments, if we can get them to, well, those are later, but at least at the level of the universities, we can form these strategic partnerships and start to talk a little bit more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will go to Professor A.G.E.N.D.A. As a former Vice Chancellor, you've had a unique advantage in leading and supporting the achievements of ACE programs within your institution. My question now is, based on your experience, what are some of the key lessons learned from the ACE journey to excellence?
Thank you very much. I am an old French speaking, and my English don't permit me to express myself in English. And that I try to speak French. Yes. Alors, je voudrais vous remercier déjà pour ce panel et remercier l'AIA pour m'avoir associé donc, à ce panel. Alors, à A.G.E.N.D.A, nous avons eu à gérer 2 centres d'excellence, le CA Impact et le Collège d'ingénierie. Alors, 3 enseignements essentiels nous avons tirés en fait de ces centres d'excellence. Le premier, c'est l'intégration institutionnelle des centres dans une institution, bien sûr, avec une vision claire institutionnelle. Alors, ceci a permis tout simplement d'avoir des centres qui sont qui font partie entière de l'Institut de A.G.E.N.D.A et qui bénéficient de la tutelle administrative, des ressources de l'Institut aussi, que ce soit matériel ou financier, mais aussi du personnel. Alors, en retour, bien sûr, toutes les bonnes pratiques des centres d'excellence, c'est tout l'Institut qui en bénéficie. Et cet ancrage-là, en fait, nous a permis, par exemple, avec les bonnes pratiques que nous avons avec l'Institut et avec les centres d'excellence, d'aller vers les accréditations, par exemple. Les accréditations, Adélaïde en a parlé tout à l'heure, de tous nos programmes, jusqu'à l'accréditation institutionnelle. Ça, c'est des bonnes pratiques du CA, des CA, qui ont impacté aussi tout l'Institut. Alors, elle a parlé aussi de la barrière linguistique. Avec les centres d'excellence, nous sommes en train de développer l'anglophonie au niveau de l'Institut de A.G.E.N.D.A. Aujourd'hui, tous les étudiants sont formés en anglais, de la première année jusqu'à la 5e année d'ingénieur, et ils doivent valider l'anglais de la même manière que les matières scientifiques et techniques. Et en plus, ils doivent passer au minimum le TOEIC pour avoir le diplôme d'ingénieur. Les enseignants aussi sont formés en anglais. Il y a eu 2 immersions des enseignants à Accra. Et l'idée, c'est que les enseignants puissent donner leurs cours indifféremment en anglais ou en français. Et ça a démarré. Donc ça, c'est des bonnes pratiques des CA, par exemple. L'entrepreneuriat, qui était un volet important aussi des CA, que nous avons développé à A.G.E.N.D.A. Et aujourd'hui, nous avons des entreprises, des startups qui sont formées, qui sont créées et qui aujourd'hui emploient des personnes. Et dans lesquelles, d'ailleurs, certains, A.G.E.N.D.A a pris des actions et est en train d'engranger des dividendes. Et ça, c'est vraiment important. Ça, c'est le premier enseignement. Alors, ce modèle d'imbrication, en tout cas, mutuel, pour nous, est un facteur de performance, mais aussi de durabilité. Parce qu'en fait, on n'a pas créé une structure dans la structure. On a créé une structure qui vit avec la structure, ce qui fait que le problème de durabilité, nous ne l'avons pas pour le CA. Le deuxième enseignement important que nous avons, c'est le label CA Banque mondiale, qui est un levier d'attractivité aussi pour nous, et mais aussi de transformation. Donc avec ce label CA, donc, ça renforce l'image de l'institution et ça a permis d'attirer d'autres partenaires. Aujourd'hui, je peux citer un partenariat avec la Banque mondiale sur un autre aspect. La Banque mondiale a financé le Burkina Faso pour un programme au assainissement. Et c'est un programme basé sur les résultats, GAR. Et donc, il faut un agent vérificateur indépendant. Et A.G.E.N.D.A a été choisi pour être l'agent vérificateur indépendant pour ce projet-là. Je peux parler aussi de la coopération Luxidev, avec qui nous avons un programme sur 4 volets, sur l'environnement, le soutien des entreprises, des startups à fort impact environnemental, l'observation de la qualité de l'air de Burkina et qui a été financé par la coopération Luxidev. Je peux ajouter aussi le PASET. A.G.E.N.D.A a été identifié comme université hôte pour recevoir des doctorants financés par le PASET dans le cadre du Regional Sustainable Innovation Fund en RRI. Et nous avons actuellement 13 doctorants financés par le PASET dans A.G.E.N.D.A. Alors, nous avons aussi le dernier programme avec la Fondation Mastercard aussi. Nous avons un programme scholarship sur 10 ans avec la Fondation Mastercard. Et nous pensons qu'effectivement, c'est un des enseignements qui fait qu'en fait, le label CA nous a permis aussi d'avoir ces nouveaux partenaires. Alors, le troisième enseignement, c'est vraiment, on a compris aussi que l'excellence s'entretient par la redevabilité et le benchmarking. Parce que les CA nous ont imposé un niveau de standard où nous étions obligés d'aller vers la qualité. Par exemple, aujourd'hui, nous avons été certifiés ISO 9001-2015 sur l'ensemble de nos activités, que ce soit la formation, la recherche, l'innovation et l'entrepreneuriat. Et aussi, ce que je voulais ajouter, c'est que aussi, nous avons eu l'accréditation de tous les programmes aujourd'hui de GIE, soit par le CMS, même les formations en ligne aujourd'hui sont accréditées par le CMS. Et ça, c'est l'expérience des CA que nous avons poussé à aller accréditer en tout cas toutes nos formations. Donc ça, c'est vraiment important. Mais aussi, en fait, le financement qui est basé sur les résultats. Donc ça nous impose, bien sûr, d'aller de l'avant. Ça consomme beaucoup de ressources, mais aussi, en tout cas, avant le décaissement, il faut des impacts concrets. Et ça nous a poussé aussi d'être performants. Voilà un peu, c'est pour vous dire, les trois enseignements principaux que nous avons tirés de ce centre d'excellence à A.G.E.N.D.A. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't ask me to translate.
Don't worry, you've brought in the aspect of bilingualism. And so we are all in school right now, so you're fine, don't worry about that. And many of the aspects that you brought in, the other speakers, Adeline mentioned, so that's fine. So I'm going to go to Professor Richard Boama. Your center has earned global recognition as a leader, setting high standards for research excellence and innovation. As the ACE project has ended, what concrete measures have you already implemented to ensure that the impact achieved is not only sustained, but continues to grow over time?
Thank you so much for that fantastic question. And I also want to add my voice in appreciating what the World Bank and ACE have done for the Centers of Excellence. And our Center of Excellence, that's the Regional Water and Environmental Sanitation Center, had our main focus advancing knowledge in water and sanitation. And primarily, the center started as a project. And as at the time, the country was fraught with problems, a lot of challenges in the sanitation, issues that has got to do with inadequate, capacity, and also the infrastructure was not even virtually non-existent. Not to talk about the financial muzzle that was inadequate to even train students and equip them with the requisite knowledge to be able to advance knowledge sustainably within the sector. So when we started, what we decided to do was to initially build capacity of faculty members so that it couldn't be just business as usual. But now we had a lot of series of dialogue with the sector and industry sector players, the key stakeholders that are there, and it brought to the fore their key challenges, their key problems. And what we did was that we actually revamped our curriculum and re-engineered the programs that we used to run at our institution so as to factor in some of these challenges so that the scope of our research, the scope of our teaching, the kind of pedagogy, so that these faculty members will be able to instill an impact positively, so that the products that will come at the end of the day, our students will be able to play meaningful role and a positive impact in the sector. This actually helped. So we also strengthened the partnership with these industrial players and stakeholder actors. So much so that the program became, so that our programs became, again, let me say, traction. It was very attractive, and we ended up attracting talented students and faculty members even to join us. And we also ensured that all the programs, just as was rightly pointed out initially, that we had internal and also external accreditation for the programs. And we embarked on massive infrastructure development, getting dedicated buildings, laboratories well equipped, so as to be able to train our students, and also ensure that the students were given opportunities to go through internship training and field training as well. And industrial actors were also given opportunity to give inputs even in our training, and thereby exposing our students to that industrial, experiences that they needed. So aside the internships, aside the faculty mobility, faculty were also allowed and encouraged to also go to internship programs as well. Then, because we actually bolstered our relationship with industry, we were also able to fashion out, let me say, sector-relevant, market-driven short courses. And this was all in order to also build capacity for those industries and the key stakeholders as well. And in so doing, it also, it also helped us also to actually diversify our revenue sources, because we, in some areas, actually negotiated with the industries and asked them for, or actually solicited support for our students. Because what we realized, because in Ghana, for instance, with the inception of the free education, free SHS education, the enrollment of students in the SHS has more than quadrupled. So a lot of students are now coming in for the tertiary education. And the spillover is that a lot of them also will want to embark upon graduate education as well. But the problem and the major barrier was that a lot of them didn't have that financial support to be able to go through. So by actually diversifying our revenue sources, we were able to create some scholarships and support for these students to come on board. With respect to how we will be able to sustain these things, we actually want to strengthen our relationship with industry. We also want to bring on board our alumni, because hitherto the alumni caucus was not actually, let me say, brought on board, because the alumni can serve as conduit in various industries and help us also to get some support from these industries. Some of them are at top level positions in their various organizations, and they can help us with advocacy in order to bring in some support for our students. We also created a kind of endowment fund, a sustainability fund, with most of the IGF that we actually generated or created during the period of ACE. We created that sustainability fund, and it was all in a bid to help our students to be able to support themselves and also create some scholarships for them. Another area that we are thinking was, on which actually came up also when we were rolling out these new programs, was the startups. Because we did infuse entrepreneurial skills in our programs. So most of the programs that we rolled out, the students at the end of the day had that kind of ability, that kind of skill to be able to even stand on their own. And that one major setback that maybe we are thinking that government will come to our aid is how to translate these, startups, into real enterprises. Because some of the industries, more often than not, they want quick fix solutions. And you realize that some of these startups may have to go through a pilot phase before they can actually graduate into for scale up and things like that. So if the government can come in to support so that these startups can be, because, after creating them, we take them through incubation training but you realize that if you want to scale them up for uptake, you need sponsorship for the pilot phase. So these are areas that we are actually soliciting support for so that these startups can really emerge. And maybe one final point I want to take up, because this collaborations was not only with industry, other sister centers of excellence. We engage them and we try to partner them in order to try to leverage on our synergies so that we can develop something that will be good, something that will be more impactful, something that will initiate key changes in the sector. And we also extended it to even international partners as well. And that is also helping very much to grow our centers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So basically, we're talking about the achievements and now sustainability. And I think we've heard everybody on sustainability talk about strengthening partnerships, strengthening relations between sister universities or centers that are running this program, so that at least you have a voice to impress on the government to assist financially. Universities on their own can also give in kind. You've talked about the alumni, we've talked about handling language barriers, and I think we've had a good knowledge sharing from all of you who have run these projects, and I would only say congratulations. And we will have somebody speak virtually.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So we're going to invite our last. Yes, I'm going to ask Adeline to properly introduce our last presenter.
So we would quickly listen to a very brief presentation from Namrata Tognata, who is a senior education specialist and the task team leader for, on the side of the World Bank for the ACE, Africa Centers of Excellence Project for Development. Hello, the technical room, could you kindly put up the slides?
So in the interest of time, though, I can start. Thank you so much for inviting the World Bank to this session, to the AAU, and to all of the panelists, Professor Fulasade, Professor Diao, Prof. Buama, thank you so much, and Professor Theresia for summarizing very concisely and effectively all of the interventions from the speakers today. We were invited and requested to reflect a little bit on, after 10 years of the ACE program, what comes next? In April, we had an interaction with all of the ACE's government stakeholders, ministers from several of the ACE countries, who came together to reflect a little bit on how the program has worked, including, of course, our center leaders and vice chancellors, and also if there is going to be a new engagement, and where does the program, what direction does the program go in next? So as part of this conference, what we wanted to do, and as part of this session, what we wanted to do is build on sort of these reflections that you are hearing from representatives of some of the exemplar centers, really, within the ACE program and the universities in which they are housed, and think a bit along with you on the direction that we are taking. So I don't know if the slides are going to come up or not, so I will just continue and let's see where this goes. So what I want to start off with is first giving you a sense of what is the data or information that we have to assess how the program has performed. Adeline began with and showed us a lot of data on results achievement. She talked about sort of how this is a program that is focused on outcomes. Financing is linked to achieving outcomes. So yes, there is a lot of targeting work behind the targeting that is set, a lot of tracking of those targets, a lot of measuring of outputs. And what is really important is, because the financing is linked to achieving these results, the verification of these achievements from the World Bank side is always based on a third-party verification. So it's an independent verification that is carried out. It is not that the centers say, hey, you know what, we have enrolled 200 students this semester and take our word for it. So everything is independently verified by a third party selected for this purpose. In addition to sort of this verification of quantitative results, there is a frequent and regular interaction with centers and universities as part of bilateral visits, as part of joint regional visits on how things are working. This is often led by specialists within the sectors in which the centers are focused, across all of the sectors: energy, water, mining, ICT, coastal resilience. So there are thematic experts that join those meetings and advise the centers on the direction they need to take. And there is operational support from the AAU, the World Bank teams, and other facilitators. And in addition then to sort of these gatherings, which are really to give the centers technical and operational direction, there are deliberate opportunities to bring centers together as part of networking, visits, partnership, workshops, where connections are made with universities and centers in other countries. And this presents an opportunity to sort of grow that network beyond the centers that are supported within the project. And UM6P would know this well, because 2 years ago, there was a partnership workshop organized here, co-hosted by the UM6P in Marrakesh, and an opportunity to build collaborations with universities in the Maghreb region and beyond. So those are some of the ways that during the project, progress is assessed and measured, and the ACE model, so to say, is iterated and refined upon, and support given to the centers. So what are sort of some of the findings? Now, the findings I don't have to deliberate on too much, because I think in all of the interventions by the speakers today, they have essentially been laid out, and what I will be doing is kind of echoing what these high-performing centers that you see on the stage have said. So the first thing that we see is that there has been a high degree of success in sort of meeting these targets, whether it is on student enrollment, on research publications, on internships that have been secured for students, on building facility and infrastructure. There has been a quite amazing success on achieving those targets and utilizing that financing effectively. The regional collaboration that has been supported has also been very effective. Where are the things that we find that there is more work to do or more support to do? And I think one thing that we realize as the bank, and I'm sure the universities and centers recognize, is that when you have 50-odd centers in a program, not everybody is at the same level of maturity or achievement. And so there are aspects where centers have done well and others need to do better. And it's a continuous sort of growth process and trajectory that one is moving on. So when it comes to, for instance, industry and sector engagement, you've heard from the speakers on how this has been facilitated and how it has worked in their case. There is definitely scope for some centers to do more through that. Professor Folasa talked about sort of the role of government in this, the role of universities in this, the role of ministries in formalizing and enabling sort of this ecosystem for centers to react to. I think from a project perspective, there can also be more capacity building on how does one think about innovation when academics are so tuned to thinking about their research, even if it is applied research? It takes a slight shift in mindset to think about commercialization, to think about technology transfer and all of that, what it entails. So on the industry sector engagement side, we definitely see the need for more tailored support, including working with all of the partners that you have heard the vice chancellors and center leaders talk about. We also see scope for increasing and integrating better centers into the institutional ecosystem. And again, I want to make very clear over here that the centers that you see on the stage, the vice chancellors and universities that you see on the stage, are some of our exemplar performers under the project. So when we think about what is needed going forward, these are the examples that one looks at to say, how has the University of Lagos done it? How has 2IE as a university done it? How has the RWESCK Center done it in Ghana? And what differentiates them from centers and universities that are still on the journey? So this integration into an institutional structure, while recognizing that there are aspects of that institutional structure that need to be strengthened through a project mode, is something that we are thinking about. So what does this mean? So this means that the university perhaps taking a more prominent role in strengthening some of those HR functions, governance practices, financing, research management that Professor Folasad talked about. It also means enabling and putting in units or divisions like we have seen at the University of Ghana, like a technology transfer unit, an innovation hub in the university instead of in the center, that serves not only the center but the university and other departments at large. So one aspect of sort of the forward-looking approach is going to be focused on how do we enable centers to integrate better into the university, and what are the kinds of supports that universities need in order to play this leadership role, not just for the ACEs, of course, leverage their specialty, but also propagate this model to other departments. So that's another thing that we're thinking about. And there is a recognition, oh, the slides are up. Can we go to the last slide, please? Because I will end on that. So if you go forward. One before this. Perfect, thank you. So these are the points. If you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, those points, those are the things that we are thinking about for a new phase of engagement in regional higher education. The first two is essentially a recognition that the model that the ACE project has been built on is one of recognizing where there is potential for excellence, a competitive process of opting into the program, and then supporting and encouraging that journey towards that excellence and towards manifesting that potential. So very much the new phase of engagement is going to continue some of that competitive selection, recognizing that there are priority sectors in Africa that need to be continued to focus on. These are very similar, of course, we've heard them in the room since yesterday, so a lot of overlap with what has been done before. And then tailoring the financing that is available, not towards the same things, but in a way that meets the maturity level of the centers and what needs to be done in order to now really achieve the sustainability and impact that is envisioned for the centers. At the university level, if you look at sort of the next 1-2 points, I already talked about the integration within the institution, but it was one of the speakers on the stage who also talked about how does the university become an engine for this collaboration within the country. So almost setting up a national consortium of like-minded universities that adopt similar good practices and that can also have spillover effects to the TVET sector, for example. If the university houses all of this technical knowledge and capability that informs policy, that informs other institutions, that informs skills development within the country, in order to meet sort of even the middle tier needs of the country, that would be something that would be quite powerful and I think worth exploring in a new project. And then finally, since we are here representing sort of a pan-continental collaboration, this is definitely, I think, a vision that we have for the ACE program going forward as well, that how do we more effectively establish a platform that is available and ready and serves a pan-continental collaboration of universities in the African continent. So these are a few things that we are considering for the next iteration of the project, and we are in early stages of consultations, so we will continue to engage with our stakeholders and participating universities, centers, others, development partners, look to see what else is happening in the region to sort of refine this thinking and take it forward. I'll close here. Sorry for taking extra time, but thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that brilliant summary. You have done a good job summarizing everything. And maybe we'll just be fair and ask if anyone has a question. We can take, okay, Prof. Olarinde.
Thank you very much for a very exciting, interactive session, and for wrap it up by the World Bank representative also. You made it easier. My mind was bothered by the question, what next for other institutions in Africa that were not beneficiary of the 1-decade journey of ACE-E.N.D.A program. So you wrapped it up. I just want to know if a strategic plan, plan for involving more institutions. And this institution, why the emphasis has been all along on strengthening capacity on the ACE institutions, there was little or no discussion on what is there for other institutions that are in the region. Thank you.
Let's have your questions so we can.
My question, Rashid Siraj from UM6P. My question will go just in the opposite direction as my colleague here. Not asking how far can we spread, But if we think backwards, and by the way, as Mrs. Namrata has mentioned, we had the pleasure at UMCXP to co-organize 2 years ago in Marrakesh the A.G.E.N.D.A Pact, and we had a lot of time to discuss some of these issues. So 10 years, about $700 million, and of course we get a lot of impact, a lot of applications, a lot of trainings, and all that. But of course, I refer to the last slide that you're showing, where we should go. And the key word for me is really what you mentioned about priority setting. Because if we start spreading ourselves too thin, we might not be able to reach those targets in terms of transformation and the access with the industry and all that. It's a matter of scale. So how do we spread and how do we go in depth? We at UMCXP, we call it the T-shape. Means, of course, we have to stay horizontal, but we also have to dig deeper in some fields if we want to reach excellence. Thank you. So it's more a comment than a question.
So Namrata, you have 1 minute to address our concern, then we close up the session.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the comment, Prof. Siraj, and thank you so much for the question. I didn't catch your name, ma'am. But I think this is an important consideration for us. I don't know if the intent of your question was, are there going to be many more centers and universities that are financed, or sort of how this expansion happens and sort of, you know, in a more inclusive way, I think your question was. But I think the way that when we conceptualized the ACE program, and of course you heard from Professor Oyewole this morning that Mr. Peter Matero, who's now at the MasterCard Foundation, was a key sort of thinker and conceptualization process. When we conceptualized it, it was very much about identifying these potential institutions that can emerge as lighthouses for the region. And yes, there is, I think, scope and potential for expanding what I would like to call the ACE community, but not necessarily many centers. And that's absolutely fine if universities want to take on the responsibility for doing that, because they must. Why should a Department of Humanities not, you know, be on its journey towards becoming a center of excellence? But I think what I would think about is that, whose role is that? Is that the role of development partners and the larger development community, NGOs, governments, universities? What role do they play? And how can we, through the centers that have been established and through the universities in which they are established, propagate this model? So, so that, I think, is the approach that we want to take going forward. Definitely, I think, building on what Professor Siraj was saying, the specialization that has been developed in these centers and universities over the last 10 years isn't something that one would want to lose. It has been significant investment. There is a lot of power in that specialization, and the question now is that how can they continue to go deeper yet have an impact that is multifold? And that's sort of the attempt with the new engagement. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
Okay, thank you. Please permit me acknowledge our rapporteur, Mr. Frank Asefo of AAU IT, an IT officer. Thank you so much for acting as a rapporteur. That said, please join me in thanking our panelists. I think the discussions have been very engaging. Thank you so much. Thank you.
of applause to all speakers and guests for the session. Yes, thank you so much, my liveliest audience.